Hello, SquawksHead here. Welcome back for another instructional video on the Ka-50 Black Shark attack helicopter. Now, I've had a request to look at the Advanced Moving Map System, or the ABRIS, of this aircraft, so I thought it'd be a good time to create a new video talking about this device that we've previously spoken about in a basic navigation tutorial, but we certainly haven't delved that deeply into it, and I intend to do that in this video. The way I'm approaching this is really from a functionality standpoint. I want to show you how you can use this ABRIS system to assist you in the aircraft and plan routes, etc. What I'm not going to be doing is taking you into every single system in fine detail. I certainly don't use it to that extent, but I do use some of the functions of it which assist me in flight. With that being said, what I want to just mention briefly is that if you're only interested in navigating using the autopilot mode or the route mode of this aircraft, which is selectable from the collective with that little button here, then do check out my basic navigation tutorial, because that talks about this device here, the PVI 800, which is very much a independent device to the ABRIS. And in that video we talk about how we get coordinates from the ABRIS, from the map, and we enter it into this device that the helicopter then uses route mode to take us there. So what is it? Well, it's an advanced moving map system, and it's designed to supplement the other navigational devices of the Ka-50, namely the PVI 800 as we spoke about, and also the horizontal situational indicator, which is this device here. I strongly suspect that this system was added after the PVI 800, which is very much a closed system. This was probably done when satellite data came online, or satellites came online, allowing global positional systems to become available. So that's probably added after, and it really is a fantastic tool, particularly if you're interested in visually seeing where you're at any particular time, rather than just relying on numbers that are outputted by this device. And also, if you want to manually fly across the map, you can follow your waypoints that you plot on here. So it's a very, very useful system to get data and so on. In this tutorial, it's really just to get you used to navigating the ABRIS, and also we'll do some flight planning, because that's what I tend to use it most for. And I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so where do we start with this? Well, we start by switching it on. And the way we do that is during the startup procedure, we flip this switch up to ABRIS, and it'll go through a self-test and BIOS check, etc. It takes about 120 seconds to then come to this page. Once it's aligned and it's got the data it needs, it'll present you with this menu page. Now, if at any point you need to know what page you're on, and it can get confusing when you press these buttons at the bottom, have a look at this top left information here. It'll tell you the page you're on. It's really useful, and the number of times I've gotten a bit lost and looked there, that's helped me instantly to know where I'm at. So keep an eye on that as we navigate through the pages. So the best way to navigate this menu system is to understand that there are 5 main pages, and they're selectable by the button at the bottom right here. This functional select key on the far right, this will select amongst the top menus. So at the moment we're on the menu page, if you see up there. If we click that, we'll go to the nav page. We click ARC, we'll go to the ARC page, HSI, we'll go to the HSI page, and ODS, we'll go to the ODS page. And then if we hit that button again, we'll go back to the menu. So think of a sort of top-down menu system, whereas this is your primary navigation for the top menus, and all the buttons to the left of it are sub-menus within them. If you do that, you can't go far wrong. So we've got a couple of dials here as well. This is the brightness dial, very self-explanatory. And we've also got this dial, and we use this quite a bit. This is the cursor selection knob. It's a rotational knob that you can select or move the cursor around the map or select through menus. And if you right click it, you make the choice. So you can select by scrolling this left and right, or right clicking to confirm. So let's start with the top page then, the menu page. Pretty self-explanatory. If you look at the top here, we've got this information, this data here. Now, as you go through the menus, you'll see that doesn't really change. It's like a title, and it'll give you certain system messages that are quite important. at the moment you can see 3D is displayed at the top, and that really just tells us that we've got good reading from the satellites that are above us, and it's giving us our 3D position. Now there are various different messages that can come up here, such as nav error, again self-explanatory, or XL 3D when there's a satellite not working or we're missing a satellite, etc. So look for messages up here, particularly if you're having trouble navigating and you're realizing that you're not quite where you are. This will give you a clue usually as to what the problem is. In the manual, you'll see there's a whole table of all the different messages you can get up here, but if you want to deep dive into that, you can. To the right of that, we have the time in local time, L, local. If we want to change that to Zulu time, we can do it in the options menu, and we'll look at that later. But this is the local time, and that'll constantly be displayed throughout these menus. So beneath that we have navigation data details. Basically, it doesn't really matter too much about this, but this is when the details or the information was uploaded to the ABRIS, the dates. One thing to note though is if you look here where it says company routes, or sometimes routes beneath it, you've got 1, which tells us we've got a route in the system. So below that we've got the navigation sensors, global navigational satellite system is ready, and also the altimeter. So not a huge amount of information on this page, but where this page is really important, because it's the menu page, it's where we tend to enter data into the system. It's really important to note that, particularly when we plan routes, that we do it from the menu page. No other page will allow us to enter that. It can get confusing when you're looking at flight plans. Know that this is where we enter them. So on the bottom, along here, we've got some sub-menus in the menu page. We've got the global navigational satellite system, so we can click that, and that gives us a visual representation of the number of satellites we've got above us, the strength of the signal, and if it's green here, that's obviously a good signal. It's got our altitude, there. It's got our ground speed, obviously our track, and so on. Now, I'm not going to delve too deeply into this, but there is a function, and if you're really interested that you could do it, if you click Calc here, you can add a destination aerodrome, the code for it. You can then put your expected time of arrival there, hit enter, and it'll calculate what sort of satellites are likely to be there when you get there. So it can give you some predictive information with a degree of plus minus 15 minutes. So if you're interested in doing that, you certainly can. Next, we can go back to the menu here. We can look at the control. I'm not going to do plan just now because we're going to deeper dive into that in a second. But we can look at the control button. So we'll hit that. And we can see here system messages that have been given to us, and here these relate to the steer points that we've passed. Well, because I'm hovering, I'm getting lots of these system messages, one after the other. But this will give you, I think it's about 20 messages of or historic messages that the system has generated. If you click down here and click Setup, and you scroll down to K041, this gives you details provided by the targeting and navigational computer of the aircraft, the K041, which is switched on here during startup. And you've got a bit of information here. You've got the mode that it's in, the work mode. The timeout refers basically to the next time the system is going to use GPS to and the INU to work out the position. The next time it's going to fix your position. The latitude, longitude, heading, track, and speed. If you hit setup again, you can go down to the database. And here, again, very much like the menu page, you get a bit of information about data when it was supplied to the aircraft. And you can see here we've got this route here because we've already got a preloaded route that we'll talk about shortly. Let's go back to the menu. Right. First thing we really want to do, and I want you to do this, or I advise you to do this very early on, certainly after you boot this system up, and that's to change the coordinates of this, or the coordinate system of this ABRIS, because in the Black Shark, the PVI 800 uses a coordinate system, a decimal coordinate system of latitude and longitude, degrees, minutes, and decimal minutes. it doesn't use the traditional degrees, minutes and seconds. So what we need to do, we need to make sure everything's speaking the same language as this PVI 800. And to do that, we go down to this leftmost option button. And you'll see there's various things we can change. I'm not going to dive into them. You can change things like your scale, the map orientation, and so on. We're not going to look at that here. We're going to hit Setup. And then we're going to scroll down to Units. And we're going to right-click that. And you'll see up here the different types of units we can change. We can change the latitude, the longitude, the speed, range, altitude, weight, and the type of ellipsoid that it uses. Now, really, we're just interested in this tutorial of changing the latitude and longitude to match the PVI 800 so it's talking the same language. And to do that, we right-click the knob, then we dial it down to the next one, and we right-click. You can also use these buttons here to navigate. You can see change there, up and down. But once we've done that, we can go back to the menu page and be safe in the knowledge that any coordinates that are provided will match the PVI 800. For instance, if we go back to that global navigational satellite system, you'll see now, look at that, degrees, minutes and decimals of a minute, rather than degrees, minutes and seconds that we had before. So that's important to note as well. I would also suggest that we go to the F10 menu, the F10 map, and do exactly the same. If you look at the top left of the map, you can't really see it on my screen, but you'll see that the northings and the eastings are, you've guessed it, in degrees, minutes and seconds. We need to change those to degrees, minutes and decimal minutes. And to do that, we press Alt-Y twice. Once, twice, and that'll change it. Now we've got everything talking the same language. We've got the F10 map talking the same coordinates, the ABRIS talking the same coordinates as the PVI 800. Really important for when we come to navigating later. Right, so other pages then, let's go through them. On the right side we've got Nav, so we hit that, and here you go. Let's just get that a bit darker. Here we go. You've got your navigational page, which is basically a visual representation of where we are on the map. You see you've got north there. And also the current waypoints that we've got planned, or the current route that we've got planned in this system. And I'll show you how to unload that later and how to create a new one. But know that this is your map page and it gives you various data. And we'll talk about that shortly when we come to plotting waypoints. The next page we've got an arc page. Very much like the HSI, this will give you a bit of an overlay really. It's an HSI but overlaid with information from the map, such as your waypoints or your route, and we've got VORs, beacons, NDBs and so on, and the airfield mark there. So we'll do a deeper dive into these pages perhaps in another tutorial. If we hit HSI, we have a digital version of this device here. And again, this can give us accurate information of how to navigate to waypoints, how far we're off track. It can also point to NDBs as well. Next, if you click ODS, which stands for Onboard Defense System, you'll see here, which is very much an RWR, radar sort of warning receiver. If you get a launch detected or you're being lasered, etc., it'll show up on here. But to arm this system, what we need to do, we need to make sure that this switch is on. And you'll see here, at the moment it says ODS off. If you click this button until it says ODS not ready, so the bottom left here, you click that until it says ODS not ready, what will happen is it'll start booting up, and it takes I think about 3 minutes to boot up before this system will be online and ready to use. Okay, so let's go back to the menu page. Right, next we need to look at planning then, flight planning. As I said, this tutorial video will probably be broken up into a couple of parts. So this one will concentrate on flight planning and how we go about it, because it's quite detailed. But it's certainly something I use and I find very useful when navigating. So if we hit plan, remember we're in the menu page, we hit plan down here. And what we've got here, we've got a pre-populated flight plan. The only time you're going to have a pre-populated flight plan is if you plan a flight, say in the mission editor, and you load this aircraft in, it'll show on here, and it'll also, funnily enough, add it to the PVI 800. But quite often you'll come in here and there'll be nothing. The reason I put this on there is I want to show you how to unload an existing flight plan, or how to save one, or how to produce a new one. So at the moment we've got this flight plan here, and to save it we can hit select, we can scroll this button down to save, right click it, and we can give it a name. Let's just leave it as that. So if we go to load a new flight plan, you'll see, go to select, load, you'll see there's the route that we saved, and we can load it by pressing that button here, and here it is. So at any point when you're flight planning, you can use this select button here to save your flight plan. And I would advise to do that at regular intervals, because quite often I've accidentally deleted my waypoint or plotted something wrong and I need to go back to my original version. But in this case we're going to unload it. Now if you unload a flight plan in here, you'll lose it if it's not saved. Bear that in mind. So we're going to right click here. We've unloaded the flight plan. Something else to note is if we go to the nav page, the flight plan we're on is still there because we've already still got an active flight plan. Until we load a new plan, that will not disappear. So let's go back to the menu page. There we are, menu, plan. Okay, now let's add a flight plan. So to do that, it's very straightforward. All we need to do, let's pause that a bit so it doesn't jitter around my track IR. You hit draw, and you use this, select this cursor control knob here. By left clicking and dragging left and right, you can move that green box up and down. I hope you can see it. Let's zoom in a bit. That green box there moves up and down as I drag this left and right, or I rotate the knob. If I want to change the axis, right click the knob, drag it left and right, and look at that, it'll change the axis. And that's how we select areas for waypoints, or how we plot waypoints, etc. Right, so if we zoom into Camp Bastion here, let's plot a few waypoints. Let's just navigate around the perimeter. So one thing to note is when you're moving this green cursor, if you want it centered, just click scale plus or scale minus, zoom in, zoom out, and it'll recenter the image. There we go. Let's plot one there. All we do now is we hit add. Then up here will come the name of the steer point that you're adding. In this case it's 0001. If we don't change that, it'll just follow a consecutive order of waypoints, steer points, so 2, 3, 4 and so on. But we can change them using this cursor control knob. We can name them what we want. Next, we do the type of steer point that we want. Are we going to fly by it? In that we don't necessarily fly over it, we just fly near it and focus on the next heading. Or we can change that to overfly, which requires us to overfly it, which basically means that when you overfly, the steer point will change to steer point 2. Or we can use fin, which is basically where we intercept the steer point and we're facing the we're already on the heading to the next waypoint. I would suggest you mainly use flyby, but it's totally up to you. But remember, this navigation system isn't directing the aircraft, so it doesn't really matter. It's more of a visual representation. Okay. Next, you can change the magnetic variation. You can add it there. Now, I don't add this. I've never had issue with it, with not adding it, but you can add it if you want. And if you want to know where you get the magnetic variation from, you can press F10. And find the compass rose. If I zoom out, there's a pink compass rose here that'll, at the top of it, you'll see it says M, and mine, you might not see it because it's quite small, but mine says M plus 2.4 degrees. So what we would do, we would change that here and add it in. But as I said, I've never done it and I've never had issues. Whether the system compensates for it or not, I don't know, but you can put it in there. If you're a purist and you want to, as detailed as possible, pop it in there. Okay, so once we've got that waypoint selected, let's hit enter and let's create a new one. You'll see there's a blue mark, 001, that's our first waypoint. Let's create another one. To do that, we hit edit on the left, edit button again to insert. And let's scroll this around and you'll see there's a blue line that follows our cursor basically shows us where the route's going to be planned between the track, between the waypoints. Okay, so there, add, enter, insert, and we can get another waypoint going. And we can do this, obviously, I don't know how many waypoints we can add, but we can keep going. I've never maxed it out, put it that way. Let's add one there, and we'll do one more. Enter, edit, insert. And let's do one at the southeastern corner of the camp. Right, add, enter, and there we go. So what we need to realise here is we're still in the draw mode, and we need to go back to plan once we've completed our waypoints. And we've got more details of each point here, and we can scroll up through them using this knob here. Okay, so we've got the northings, the eastings in the decimal system. We've also, you can see here, the altitude. We can designate altitudes for the points, and to do that we can add a bit more detail. So if we hit edit and we go to, say, speed, we can enter the target speed that we want. It tends to pre-populate it for you. But what I do tend to, if I want to be at a certain altitude at one of these waypoints, I'll select the waypoint, edit, and I'll go to VNav. Now in VNav mode you can select the speed here, so edit. You can also select the altitude that you intend to intercept that waypoint at. And we'll see later, when from the navigation page, a representation of the altitude we should be at. But that's where you put it. Enter. And then we can go back to the plan. Right, now you've planned your route. You want to save it. Before you make it active, please save it, because you'll lose it otherwise. I've learnt that through many errors. So select, save. And we're going to name this, here we go, RT00001. Save. Now if we go to select and load, you'll see here we've got the original route that we saved, and we've got the RT1 route that we've created. So if we go to that, just to show you, we can load the route, and there it is. So you can save numerous routes if you want to. Next, we can make that flight plan active, and to do that, we hit the activate button. Okay, so once we hit activate, it'll move to the nav page, and it'll show the route that we've just activated. It's important to note that if we do not activate the flight plan, you will still be on the old flight plan. So bear that in mind. Once we've activated it and we're on this nav page, you'll see we've got an overlaid ODS system here, onboard defense system, which is quite nice because it's got a compass rose, which is really good, I find, for when I need to tell wingmen what bearing targets are at and so on. It's really quite nice to use that. Okay, and below that we've got some data here that's really quite important for us navigating. Remember, we're going to be navigating visually using this map. We're not be doing it via the PVI 800 unless we enter the data from here into that device there. So looking at this data here, what have we got? We've got our ground speed, we've got the bearing to the next waypoint, so in this case 271 degrees. We've got the time on mission, AFT, that's the flight time. This altitude, 926 meters. Our current position in minutes, degrees, minutes and decimal minutes. This is saying where we're going to, so we're going to waypoint 1 or steer point 1. The desired track angle for that is 271. The distance is 1.6 kilometers. And our ETA, this is how long it's going to take us to get there. And this is the time, the one below it is the time that we'll get there in local time. And to the right of that is the next steer point. You've got the next steer point information. What's also important to note here, is with these scales. We've got this scale at the top here from left to right. This will tell us how far off track we are when we're navigating the waypoints. And this one here will tell us how far off the height or the intended height that we set. You remember when we planned the waypoint, we said the anticipated height you should be at when you get to waypoint 1 or steer point 1. Well, this gives you an indication of how far away you are from that height. Really, really good stuff here that helps you navigate. Okay, so now we're in the nav page, and remember this is the second page. So if you look, when we start the helicopter, we're in the menu page. If we hit nav, there we are. It's the second page of this, or the second page of the menu system, if you like. You've got various options down the bottom, and remember these are sub-menus. So the next button we need to look at is suspend. If we hit suspend, what will happen, you'll see it'll move to the next waypoint. The line that we need to follow will change. Look, you'll see here, it's changed to 2. Suspend, we press it again, change to 3, and basically what this is doing is suspending the current waypoint in favour of the next waypoint, and so forth. And if we keep hitting it, we can go back to waypoint 1. So if you ever want to jump to another waypoint very quickly, let's say waypoint 4, you can just click through the suspend waypoints to 4, and this is what we need to do. We need to head at a track of 106 for 3.4 kilometres, and that's our ETA and the time we expected to be there. Next, we've got the flight plan button. So if we hit flight plan, you'll see here details of the flight plan that we've loaded. And this is really good for when we come to enter into the PVI 800. If we want to enter the flight plan in here, we just read off the coordinates of our steer points. Really, really useful page, this. We can also change the waypoint we're looking at by cycling through. And if we hit 2, now it's really important to bear this in mind. And there's a pitfall to this. If I now hit 2, it'll erase every waypoint going, and it'll just send me to waypoint 3, and we'll lose the other waypoints. So do not click 2 unless you want to lose all the waypoints in favour of going to the one you've selected. However, if we hit VNav, we can select the waypoints this way. And we can VNav to this one. We can VNav to waypoint 3, for instance. And to do that, we just activate it. There we go. We can go to waypoint 4 and activate it, or back to waypoint 1 and activate it. Now, really important to note, you can either suspend, or you can go to flight plan, select the steer point you want, hit VNav, and then we can select the steer point that we want with this control knob here, and then we can hit activate, and you'll see this green line will change. It'll point to the other steer point. So if we do, let's go down to steer point 3, activate, you'll see there's the line. We're going to steer point 3. So you can do it that way in addition to suspending the waypoints from the main nav page. But be warned, if you hit flight plan and you hit 2, and this is a real pitfall, I've done this so many times, if you hit 2, you'll erase all the other waypoints and you'll go direct to that waypoint. In terms of the direction it'll point you to is that waypoint, and you would have lost all the previous ones. You'll have to reload the plan. So use VNav, I would, or suspend option, which is there. Next, we can go to the map page by clicking the second functional key here, and you'll see that the compass rose of the ODS, the onboard defense system, has gone, and we're replaced with a cleaner map that we can scale in and scale out on. Also, we can use this ERBL section. This is really quite a good tool, and I've used it before. It can give us a bit of information live. So if we click that, you'll notice that the map makes north points upwards on the map. So we're going to be pointing whichever heading we're facing. You can scroll this in much the same way, this red cross, in much the same way as you did with the cursor when flight planning. And this will give you live data as you do it to a certain point. So if you just want to quickly know, okay, let's say I want to go to the airport, I want to go to Camp Bastion runway here, all I'll do is I'll put the crossover on and know immediately the coordinates, the northings and the eastings, the bearing, the distance, the altitude, and there's the magnetic variation there of 2.4 degrees. So really, really useful. You can also do this for a marker point. So let's say I set a marker here. Let's put a marker over the runway. And I want to know the bearing from that marker to, let's say, waypoint 1. All I do is I move that over here. over here, and there's my information. And it's really good tool, so you know when you get to a destination, immediately you'll know the bearing you need to take. It's also good for marking targets. When we come to look at the data link, which we'll do in another video, you will often get a visual representation that somebody has sent to you of where a target is, and you can use this ERBL to work out straight away what heading you need to go towards to intercept the target or ingress to the target. So it's a really useful tool to be used on the fly. Now, the next button is called Info, and in much the same way as ERBL, it can give us coordinate details. So we click Info, north goes to the top, the direction we're facing is shown there, and we can move this red cursor, this red box, around a point. But the difference between this and the marker system, the ERBL, is this: if we put it over, say, an airport or an NDB or a VOR, and we hit Info again, it'll give us information of the or details of the marker we're over. So in this case, look, you can see it's an aerodrome, you can see it's Camp Bastion heliport. Next, we can navigate down to things like non-directional beacons, let's say. We can hover over that. We'll do it over here. And it'll, if we hit Info, it'll give us information of the NDB at Bastion. So, really useful tool for getting information on the fly from the map, if you want more detail than's presented to you just up here. So another really good function that is, so we've got markers, remember, let's go to here, map, we've got markers, a marker system, and we've got an information gathering system. I'll show you one more very useful thing that I often use when I'm planning flights or I need to suddenly go somewhere and enter it into this PVI 800. If you hit nav, and you come up with this page again, it's overlaid, remember, with this compass rose, which is helpful. If you hit search, this is really useful tool. If we hit right click on the right knob, we can scroll through the different airports. We can even head directly to them by hitting the to button, or we can get information about them. So we can flip through the airports. So if we need to suddenly get to another airfield, we can, like Kandahar for instance, we can click to and we'll get a waypoint taking us straight there. So we can also search for VORs, so we can do that by hitting the right knob. There we go, look, Kandahar. We can search for NDBs. We can go through those by selecting this. This is selecting the nearest to us, by the way, just to be mindful of that. Waypoints, we can search through our waypoints. So you can also search for towns as well. And again, you can navigate direct to them if you hit this to button, or get information about them. Look at this, info, there we go. You can search by name. Anyway, back to the nav page. So I think we'll call it a day there, because I want to look at the other systems of the ABRIS at some point, and I think this video would be too long if I carry on. But I hope this video has given you a bit of an introduction to what this ABRIS system is, what it can be used for, and how to plan a route within the system itself, and also how to get coordinates from this system to enter into the PVI 800. In another tutorial video, I'll look at some of the other features of the ABRIS, but know that those features I've just described tend to be the ones I use the most, and I find are most useful during a live flight or live mission. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I'm going to bid you adieu now, and hopefully catch you in multiplayer sometime soon. Bye bye for now.